All right, hey everyone, back with another tutorial. So I decided I'm going to do another one around creating drive in a track and creating movement in a track as well. I think the last time, if you haven't seen the other two videos around bass lines, please go and look at those first if you want. This one will be basically talking about how to add movement to the track, which I kind of didn't cover in the other videos again. So what I will do is I'll show you a bass line which sounds quite static, and I'll tell you the reason for that why, but it is important to have movement in a track so it doesn't sound too static, and I'll show you how I've achieved that in this particular track using acid sounds and ARPs, what I call runners. You can see them here, and it just gives a little bit of movement into the track as well. So yeah, I just thought that would sort of clear it up and give you a little bit there. So I'm just going to show you, play first quickly the mid bass. Now, I gave a few tips on the MIDI patterns that I used for this mid bass in another video, which you can watch, how I layered this, and I'll go into a little bit of detail as to why I did it this way. Now, in terms of kick and bass and the mid bass relationship, I will make another video on that as well. But this one is more around just how to create movement in a track and how to create drive in an uplifting trance kind of song. So I'll just play this mid bass for you with the kick. So if you just hear that, the mid bass does sound nice. There's a lot of frequencies being filled with this in the low sections, low mids where it should be. So if I just bring up EQ for this one, you'll kind of see that it's filling up the right frequencies. Now, what I always recommend, I'll just try to freeze it, and I believe there's a freeze button somewhere in this. There we go. So we'll just freeze the mid bass there, and your mid basses, you can see there's a lot of low. I've kind of cut it off around 111 hertz. Some people think there's a rule like you have to do it at 200, but not really. I think anything about here is fine, depending on the type of sound. But I find that if I'm just doing a blanket 200, I got to get the sub started getting involved in this 100 range. And then the kick sub and the mid bass relationship, I'll maybe make another video on that. But really, the sub sits around 50, the kick sits around here, but the kick actually is timed differently to the mid bass. Because the kick hits, and then, you know, if you have side chain, it'll duck your mid bass. And yeah, really, they're kind of playing together. So it's important that you fill this out. Otherwise, you get a lot of people with hollow, empty kind of tracks. So you don't want to just avoid that. Anyway, you'll see the curve of the mid bass is actually like this. And that's how mid basses should be. You shouldn't have a lot of frequencies here, because that's what you're reserving for your hats, your leads, and everything. So you always remember your curve for your mid bass should be like this. I've kept this particular sound, in this particular track, I've kept the mid bass quite static and mono, because I kind of like the drive it gives if we just play it with the sub. Nice. So that's great, because you want to have a little bit of something which is not moving around too much, because it will sound better in mono. And that's why I've kind of kept it this way, because when you start adding width or movement, that goes into the stereo field. And when you mono a track, the bass may not come out as much. So especially if it's a low sort of bass line kind of thing, your lower layers should be definitely more mono compatible. You can have some higher layers. There is a wide bass here that I've kind of got. I'll explain that through how I did that with detune. Play that quickly. versus something like this. Now, if you have got a stereo system, you would have instantly heard the difference there. And again, you can see the relationship. Anyway, I have gone into this a little bit more, but what I actually wanted to show you was these layers and how I get movement out of the track. So if I just play this layer here, you kind of see it's moving around a bit. It's got the phaser on it, which is actually doing that. It's giving it a left to right. It's more just like a, if I bring this into view, it's like an ARP, it's like a sequence from a template. It's quite nice. And then generally, I've actually got it paired with this sound. You can see that's moving around quite a bit. Really need that in a track to really complement your bass lines if they are too static. Now, with that, I've actually also got these layers, which are like acid stabs, so we'll just play them. So, I like to have stabs in my track. I think they definitely do help with creating interest. So if we play them all together in, you know, just here, you can instantly tell that's a lot of nice movement. And you can tell also if I try to bring this up on an EQ, oops, I apologize for that. If I do bring this up on an EQ for whatever reason, let's just whack the Voxengo span on. Now, this is interesting. You'll see that this is actually a higher curve. And if I look at the lowest here is 200 Hertz. So what that means, I'm generally targeting these higher frequencies as the movement layers. And like I said before, I don't want the mid bass kind of being lower layer. You don't want the low sections of a track being too far into the stereo field. And I've got a little mono here, so I'll just turn this on and I'll show you what the bass line sounds like in mono. So we'll just bring it across. Now that's in mono. If I turn it off. See how that collapses into mono beautifully. And that is also because there's no phasing. And I've explained this in a couple of other videos if you want to go back around the type of sounds you should choose to avoid phasing. I mean, I will make more videos on this, but it's a little bit more advanced. But it's very important your bass lines can collapse into mono because most really big systems are going to be in mono. So if I play this here, and that's in mono, and it's sounding, well, sounds like the same track. If I turn it off, you can see there's not that much difference. Now, if I play these layers in mono as well, that's in stereo. And watch me if I just collapse it. So you can still hear them because they're not cancelling each other out, but you can also tell that they have a lot of movement in stereo, which we really want. And they still collapse into mono fine, but higher frequencies, they can tend to start phasing or causing problems when you start moving them around left and right, because you can see it's very clear that the way that these sound, the relationship is very different in mono. Like you can't really hear that movement. So like bass lines, I don't know if it's really like worth putting too much movement on them because they're meant to drive the track in the low end, and it's very important. I think anything below 250, I think should be more in the center, and then anything below like 120, 130 should be in mono. So in terms of creating movement, you'll see with these kinds of runners, you'll see that I've panned this one to the 6 to the left, to the right, and this one to the left. I try to pan similar elements in the same left and right, just because they kind of create a nice relationship. So if I just play this. Oh, sorry, still on mono. So I'll turn that off. Now you can see how much movement that gives the track already, with the bass line. Nice. So let's look at this one. It's an acid sound from another pack, and it was just a stab. It's panned about 13 to the right. You'll see that the bass lines are quite all center, and the same one is sort of 14 to the left. I think I just chose one off. I just thought it sounded nicer sometimes. So if we play that together. So I like the stabs. I can do more in-depth tutorials around that, but essentially with the nice stabs, it's what I would call in psytrance, they use it. It's called the question and answer trick. So question and answers, you ask a question with the first sound, and then you get an answer with the other one. So that's my question, and you'll notice that this is my answer. So I always try to do a question and answer kind of thing. And in this one, it's very similar, because now you've got question, answer, question, answer. All right, so put them together with the bass line, everything, you'll get movement in the track. Right, so that concludes this tutorial. This track is still very much in the works, and there's going to be a lot of improvements to it, but I thought it would be good to record a video. All right, guys, if you have made it this far, please, if you can, give this a like and a subscribe. I will be continuously posting more tutorial videos now to help everyone. And yeah, catch you in the next one.